So you'll forgive me that I am a speaker. There's a difference between a speaker and a teacher and a lecturer. I speak a lot, and I speak in very many places. But then I either am given a topic which pushes me into a small area, or I'm given freedom to talk about anything, and I'm not asked to speak 6 times. You know, they say after the first time, please go home. So now that I'm going to continue to speak to you, it is a challenge for me. So all of you young people, please bear with me if I make mistakes or if I do not satisfy what you want to hear from me. You are at liberty to write to me, talk to me, and we can continue with it. You can also at liberty to critique me and tell me what's wrong with me. I must say that when I begin, because I think one of the best ways of growing always is to listen to critiques and criticism, which is something in India we now don't want to hear at all. And that is the most guaranteed way to doom. Of course, there's a famous story of the emperor's new clothes, which we all read when we were children, that this emperor was fond of clothes, and there was this tailor who came who was a great thief and knave, and he said, my clothes are so beautiful that only the wise can see it, and he was stitching nothing, and everyone said, oh, what wonderful clothes, what beautiful clothes. Finally, the king donned the clothes. It was completely without anything. He donned the clothes, and he went on this great journey in the street, Rath Yatra, and everyone said, oh, how beautiful the clothes are, because if they had said there were no clothes, they would have been declared stupid. But eventually a child said, oh, the king has no clothes. And everybody started shouting, the king is naked, the king is naked. For me, it's an important political story to remember always, that if we don't speak the truth, the knave will run away with the money, but I'll have to deal with myself and my stupidity, my foolishness, my cowardice. So therefore, speaking the truth and listening to criticism are very valid things for all of us. In 1975, I resigned from the IAS. I just didn't know what I was going to do, except that I wanted to work with people who were poor. I was very clear that I wanted to see the beginning, the middle, and the end of my action. I was very clear that no boss of mine would transfer me if I did the right thing. I wanted to be in a ground where I was not suspicious of everyone around me for taking bribes. Has he taken a bribe? Has she taken a bribe? My peon has taken a bribe. My reader has taken a bribe. When I was a magistrate in Parliament Street courts, when I sat in the open court, we were given 1 day for free attestation of affidavits. So I used to throw open, I never went into my retiring room to sign the affidavits. I was in the public area. My peon was announcing from the morning outside, today all affidavits will be signed for free in room number so-and-so, magistrate so-and-so. But what of the time when I was not doing it? Because anyone can take money in your name, and they do. So there's always a suspicion. Is the Tehsildar taken money? Has the police constable taken money? Has so-and-so taken money? I really used to feel a complete moral crisis every day. Since I'm in an institution that discusses and talks about ethics, every single minute there's an ethical challenge and a dilemma. And I want at least that small kernel of peace inside myself, where I know my actions have not deliberately led to any harm. How would I sit there? Whose house has been demolished? Whose land has been grabbed? Which woman has been put in the Nari Niketan just because she was marrying someone from another community? Terrible questions to answer, and I did not want that lack of peace. That was one of the many reasons why I left IAS. But when I went outside, it was a huge challenge to go and get talking to people in an area which was new and with equality. You need to have the tools to talk to people. You cannot just go and start talking. You understand you understand something, and the reality is something very different. So I also started thinking, because I was a person, I thought, should I join politics? I said, but what political party will I join? Because they are all as bad as the system that I have left. So what shall I do? But the left politics, yes, it was very attractive because it talked about equality, it talked about social principles and values, But the party didn't have the kind of internal democracy which should have given me space, even as a woman, maybe, I don't know. So there were many questions. But what it did lead me to look at and consider was the issue of politics. So the house that you see there is the house in which the MKSS lived from 1987 till today. It's still there. It's a mud hut. Nikhil, Shankar and I went to Devduri. And this mud hut, it's a beautiful place for me. It's beautiful. We went there with the intention of setting up an organization which would deal with the politics of equality, look at the politics of discrimination, look at the politics of involving people in democratic decision making, but we did not have a clear agenda because we felt it has to be made with people, even though there was some clarity. But we knew what we would not do. We would not be a registered charitable society. We would not take funds on behalf of the people we were working with. We would not run projects. So the first few months, few years, actually we took studies. One given by the Ministry of Human Resource Development through the Institute of Development Studies in Jaipur, looking at local reality, looking at educational availability of education, not schooling, because again I see a difference between literacy and education. I see a difference between school and learning. So not just that, but look at the school and learning, look at the curriculum, look at the texts and how an English text talks about all the castes in a derogatory manner, and yet you say to them that the Baba Sahib's great constitution which gives us equality will prevail. So all these contradictions that he mentioned, we wanted to bring out to light in an academic manner. But in this house, I had to deal with many layers of prejudice and reaction of people. The people I came to work with, the people I already knew in a sense because I had spent 10 years before I came here in rural Rajasthan. But nevertheless, I had to learn a different dialect. I speak Rajasthani fluently, but what spoken in this place, it was 160 kilometers from where I was before. I was in Ajmer district, now I came to Rajasthan district, words changed. The tone changed. The idiom changed. So I had to get used to that. Then it was a challenge to live in that house, to go and get water every day for everything on my head, along with the other women and men who did it. Face the conflict of untouchability, because my Shankar's daughter was like my niece, who went to get the water from the well, which belonged to a Dalit, had to lift that water, but she could not because it was very heavy. She was only 13. The pot was so heavy, she asked the owner of the well to please help her with the pot. The entire village turned up at our door to say, you have gone beyond caste limits. You have allowed an untouchable to touch your pot. That pot will be broken and we will deal with you. It was a whole day's confrontation, and finally the owner of the house was Shankar's cousin and their husband. Her whole family turned up and said, we'll evict you from this house. I said, you evict us, but you will face the court of law. I am going to go and register an atrocities case against this whole village. So all this carried on, and finally they calmed down and they let us. Look at the contradiction. The well belongs to a Dalit, but an untouchable Dalit we can go and aggrandize his water and say, we will take the water. He doesn't have the gumption to say you can't take the water. We take the water, and yet if he just with humanity, with compassion, extends a hand to help a small child, we say to him, who are you to do it? So all these anomalies you all know. You're not from a foreign country. But the question was, what do you do? So in this whole business of dealing with the translation of those values and those ethics into reality, the challenge really is, how do you deal with all this through constitutional means, through peaceful means, because I'm not an Naxalite, I do not believe in violence. How do I translate all those rights into reality? I go back to the first lecture and I say, I have nothing else but the Constitution. Again and again I go back to the constitutional remedies, I go back to the guarantees of the Constitution, I go back to systems in place, and I'll have to fight to that system. However corrupt it is, I have no other recourse. So there I go back again. I talked about Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi did another very important thing when we got independence. He did not take office. Jawaharlal Nehru became Prime Minister, Sardar Patel became Minister. So many people joined, but Mahatma Gandhi refused to take office. It's a big question. Now Nelson Mandela did become the President of South Africa. Now, was Nelson Mandela's becoming President of South Africa beneficial or not beneficial? Was Mahatma Gandhi not stepping into those shoes of governance important, beneficial or not beneficial? History will debate on these issues. But Mahatma Gandhi did not. And yet, he went to Noakhali. Yet, he had Nehru, Patel, everybody coming to where he was in Calcutta to talk about the fact that there was extraordinary communal violence and that it had to be dealt with. Finally, Gandhiji had an influence on the decisions made by the government, but he did not belong to any political party and he did not want office. That has left a tradition in India to which I now belong, in which there is the Narmada Bachao Andolan. There are so many Andolans and movements. You have the movement against, the agricultural movement against genetic modification of seeds. You have medical movements, you've got movements of Dalits, you've got women's movements. We are all people who are political. But political in the sense of fighting wrong within a democratic system, within the constitutional framework, but we do not want office. We do not want to be members of a political party. That's why the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan calls itself a non-party political organization. When I go to Kerala, they say, how can you be that? You have to belong to some party. And I say in Kerala, but we don't. We belong to a party which is a general democratic vision, but not belonging to an ideologically limited and completely hierarchical party, though we may, in fact, agree with many of the things that you state in your ideological position. Whether you are centrist or left, we may agree, but we are not framed within that constitutional frame, within those limited ideological framework. So, how did we address them all? So the MKSS, and in this mud hut where we still live, has been able to deal with many things. First of all, we are still not a registered society. We are not a registered trade union. Why are we not a registered trade union? We are not a registered trade union because we debated for a year. And in that year we felt that a trade union is prescribed. You have to have a general secretary, you have to have a secretary, you have to have a chair, you have to have all that. And my feminism has taught me the importance of collective leadership, the importance of collective deliberation. I am not the leader of the MKSS. I am not the chair of the MKSS. I am not the general secretary of the MKSS. I am just an ordinary member of the MKSS. We have a central committee which meets once a month, and we take decisions, and those decisions hold. And you can disagree, you can dissent. Your dissenting vote is acknowledged, but if it is the others feel that in the larger good, your dissenting vote will just be kept there but not be acted upon. You have to have the decency to accept their decision and stay on. If you really feel very bad, then there are other recourses open. So the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, in which there were mainly people from the rural areas, local areas, working with us, we formed the Sangathan. And the Sangathan, what is the time? I've forgotten when I have to finish. Have I exceeded the time? I've got 5 more minutes? Yeah.
You can take it down. We close at 12:45. So you can go up to 12:30.
Okay, that's right. So, who were these people who formed the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan? And who are so wise? And I want to share some of their personal histories, and I also want to say how political ideology is defined by people, and how the right to information was actually seen by the people who are never credited anywhere in the country, even today, as to have had the capacity to actually frame the law. We have with us Chuni Singh. Chuni Singh just passed his 2nd class, not even that. I think he taught himself literacy. At the age of 4, he had to migrate from his village. His father died, and his father's brother kept giving them grain. And after 1 week, he said to him, for how long will I give you grain? How long will I feed you and your family? So the 4-year-old felt a sense of indignity in having to receive the grain every day from his uncle. He left that village and he went with his mother on a series of the emigratory route to Kota and Bombay, working in dhabas for 12 hours a day, and for the rest of the time trying to learn something about what was right and wrong in the world. For me, Chunni Singh is one of the most ethical people I have met. Fearless, he couldn't care less. When Chunni Singh came and joined the MKSS, his face was full of knife marks, because when he went eventually to Gujarat and worked there as a worker along with various people, the knife marks on his face were battles he fought for others against whom there was atrocity and discrimination. So Chunni Singh is a member. Chunni Singh also went with me to Manila when we got the Maxisai. Because the Maxisai is given and you are allowed 2 tickets. One for the person whose name they put on. We fought with them not to get it to an individual but to the collective. They wouldn't agree. But eventually Chunni Singh went with me and Chunni Singh took them by storm. And I want to tell you these stories because this is where the truth lies, you know. Discourses tell you all kinds of good ideas. But this is where for me the truth lies. Chunni Singh didn't have decent clothes to go with. All his clothes were tattered. He was bought clothes by us, got a passport. When he went to take the passport at the Tehsil office, they all laughed at him and said, you will go to Manila to represent us, our country. Are you sure? What will you say there? Why do you want to go? So he said, it's none of your business, I'm going. You give me the passport. So he got the passport. When he got the passport, got clothed, he asked me, how will we go? And I told him. He said, okay, I'll deal with it. So we sat in the aircraft, we went to Manila, and as we entered the city and went to the Marxist Foundation, there was a banquet. And even I'm unnerved by banquets because I live in this house that you see at the back. And there was this beautiful linen, and there was 3 courses, and there was a floral arrangement, and silver, and crystal, and what have you. I sat there and I thought, my God, now this is going to be a test, not only of Chunni Singh, but of me. So when I sat there, he said to me in Hindi, he's a vegetarian, he said, I can't eat meat. So I said, don't worry, I'm also not going to eat meat. So whatever I eat, you can eat. And you won't believe it. He used his fork and knife. He doesn't have a spoon in his house. He used his fork and knife with the aplomb of an upper class Indian. So for me, it is in these gestures and it's in this understanding of people that real wisdom lies for people's movements. We dismiss them, but Chunni Singh in the most difficult area of social behavior, where, knives and forks, I'm always confused whether it comes from out to in or in to out, 3 knives and 3 forks, and where's the soup spoon, and where is this, and where's the dessert spoon. Chunni Singh was that. So I'm just telling you these vignettes, because when I say the other things, everyone said it before, you read what I've said, it's all over the place. But it is the kind of material that you work on, that India's true democratic freedom and courage to speak the truth really lies. So in this, we had to address 3 sets of issues. We had to address discrimination, we had to address political misappropriation, and we had to deal with economic classes. So the first thing you do when you enter this kind of space is to look at the critical thing that people want. And village after village, group after group, whenever I went, I used to say, what do you want? Believe me, they only said one thing. And what do you think they said? Come on, you'll get out of your slumber a bit in the drone of my voice also. What do you think they said? Can't guess? Of course you can guess. Come on, guess. It doesn't matter if you make mistake. Come on. What do you think poor people want when you ask them what do you want? Sorry? What did it say? You have to say it loudly, I can't hear. Money. Accountability. It came later. They all wanted work. They said we want to live with dignity. Hanumant Rao, who was member of the Planning Commission, brought to Rajasthan in 87-88 one of the most severe droughts in India. He brought a team and came, and we had 500 people assembled on the national highway between Udaipur and Ajmer waiting for him. He came, and there were people and children who hadn't had a meal for 5 days standing in that audience. And when he came and said, "What is your remedy?" They said, "We want work. You pay us and we'll deal with our hunger. You pay us and we'll deal with everything." And a woman came and she said, "You know thorns in Rajasthan, we know how to eat everything. We eat thorns. We know how to put it into a paste and make rotis." She said, "I have eaten rotis made of thorns." And it became a huge issue in our area. It's called Kantiyan ki roti. All of you understand Hindi. Kantiyan ki roti, it made the papers. How can you live on Kantiyan ki roti? They said, "We do not want your dole. We do not want your charity. We want to live with dignity." The first thing I learned, and I had learned long ago, was the dignity of a human being is as important as money, hunger, shelter, everything else. You don't want your dignity gone at any cost. And they will not work as domestic labor. I have heard many people in the city say, they don't want to work because they won't work as my domestic labor. Domestic labor is considered terrible. They will not work as domestic labor. That's why they get bonded, because they go and work with farmers or with industrialists. And they get bonded. The point is, to live with dignity is vital for those people. So they said, "Give us work." So we understood that the large-scale migration that takes place from all parts of this country, you know that Bihar exports labor to Punjab, that Tamil Nadu exports labor to Kerala. You know how we export labor to each other because of slightly better conditions there. Our people go and live outside. Our children die, ill health, everything comes back to the village. They go in search of work. How many beggars do you find, and how many people go on migration? If you have those figures in front of you, you will never say that people beg for a living. So they wanted to live with dignity. So the main thing economically we understood was that they want to live with dignity. And look at the way we cheated them. There was something called the Pradhan Mantri Rozgar Yojana in those days. PMJSY it used to be called. And in that, when 300 people in the village wanted employment for at least a month to survive, you would give them 2 days. And that muster roll, which is the labor list when it comes out, there would be mayhem, there would be fights, because everybody wants to get onto that labor list. Because it's only road to dignity, survival, to food, for everything. So everyone wants to get onto that road list, onto that list. And we found the largest number of roadblocks when they were really desperate. The whole village would come and occupy National Highway number 8, which just crossed our road and meandered to Delhi. They just stop, they just go and park themselves there, and it will become what traditionally in administration is called a law and order situation. No one would see the denial of justice for those people. So again and again, it kept coming back that people want to live with economic dignity. They do not want poverty any more than we want them to be poor. And it's interesting because the day before yesterday I was in Roorkee addressing a Speak Meke group, and in that a child of 11, when I asked why are people poor, a child of 11 said they don't work. That's why they are poor. They are lazy. That's why they are poor. But the poor work, they do everything, every single thing. Chundi Singh knows to do many things which I don't know. I'll starve, but he'll live. He can dig a well, he can go into the well, he can farm, he can do a million jobs, which I can't do. So the issue is, if you want to fight poverty, if you want to negate what Ambedkar said in the last slide I showed you, how will you do it? And in this we came across some bills, vouchers and muster rolls which were false. In this fight for work, we went and had a small entry point in a small village, and we went and saw some documents, and we realized that money was not coming to us when it was supposed to come to us. And we had an inquiry which we insisted the subdivision magistrate would do, and in that we discovered that there was a fraudulent company called Bhairo Singh Bhairunath and Sons, and the Bhairunath and Sons had siphoned off, we said 42 lakhs, government said 28 lakhs, but they didn't say no. They, whenever they wanted money, the block office, the BDO's wife, the engineer, and one of the other politicians would just go and sign a check, take money and give it to this Bhairunath and Sons. And Bhairunath and Sons had no sales tax registration, state or central, had no income tax registration. It was a completely bogus company and the entire amount of money went to finance their lives. When this came out, a lot of anger and angst, because we denied a right to live by these bogus interpretations of laws and regulations, and we go back to exactly where we were before 1947. No improvement has come to us. For us, in fact, it's much worse, because now you say we can vote, but that vote of ours is also purchased and we are given nothing in return. So the political education of people began with all this. So the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, which name is very clear to you, Mazdoor or Kisan, and Shakti was the local name given to us because we should be powerful, began its journey. And in this journey, slowly and gradually, people started understanding the importance of documents. We had at that time a very senior civil servant in Delhi called S.R. Shankaran, who used to belong to the Andhra cadre. He was Secretary, Ministry of Rural Development, and when he came, very sympathetic man, he stayed a bachelor. His entire salary went to the education of Dalit children in Andhra. Today there are statues to Mr. Shankaran everywhere in Andhra Pradesh. He was a legend in Andhra. But when he came to us, and when I said, Mr. Shankaran, we must see those label lists, otherwise, we'll never know who worked. He said, how can you see it, Aruna? They are treasury bills. So I said, what are treasury bills? I am a citizen of this country. Those treasury bills are my treasury bills. I should be able to see it. But even he at that stage had some qualms about this transparency because there was fear. There was fear that if documents get out, it will become uncontrollable. So the colonial mindset had been completely and totally put into the minds of our brown Saabs. Even into Medi and Aruna when she was in the service. But after she left it, even there I felt everything should be transparent. But maybe I would have been a little more timid, I don't know. But after coming out, I've had no qualms that if information is not power, what is? Information is power. Who is on the BPL list can be the subject of inflammatory politics. In Madhya Pradesh, in one small subdivision, a subdivisional magistrate gave the BPL list to some volunteers who had come into his subdivision from Delhi, St. Stephen's College, all the big colleges, IIT. When he said, okay, go and examine this BPL list. The BPL list only had rich people's names. The poor people they're not there at all, and it's common. It's the most common thing. That is why in the modern current debate, whether it's Jean Reyes or me or many others, we've been asking for universalization of all rights and self-selecting process, not a process in which government selects you, puts you into the wrong list and you're damned forever. So the level of arbitrariness and the level of corruption in these things shocked us. Once, when we went and we asked for information, the absolutely pathological reaction of the civil servant told us great things. Why was information so dangerous? What is it? It's after all only, in many cases, just an abstract thing. It's only some information on a piece of paper. Why should it frighten everybody like this? And we understood the power of that word and the power of that information. And we understood too that it will really mean changing power relations, making the poor powerful. Every time we went and stood outside asking for anything, we were told we were Naxalites, we were told we were extremists, we were told we were terrorists, we were told we were unlawful elements, and I am not, very often not as neatly turned out as I am now. I might be in a crumpled sari. And I will look like every other old woman. I'm called, by the way, not Amma, but Nani in my area. I've gone up. So if the old woman, so she's one idiotic Nani ji standing there. Oh, kya kar rahi, But the power has changed now. Because you go with an RTI application and you put fear of God into that office. I'm going to deal with it in detail much later. But I'm jumping to tell you that just asking for information unnerved the entire system. We also tried all kinds of modes. We went on a fast unto death, asking for wages. Wages are a critical thing, minimum wages. When we went on a fast unto death, the MLA said, let them die, 17 people less. How does it matter? Then when we sat on the second hunger fast, the chief minister got so rattled because 100 crores of the JRY was stopped because in one place 95 paise per day was paid as wage. And we said, what a shame. How can in independent India, a person who works, you get him out, say he is not working, you pay him the minimum wage, how can you pay 95 paisa wage? So that, when the chief minister reacted sharply to it, hundreds of cops, we were sat on this hunger fast in a place called Beam. At midnight, they came to take us away. No one lifts anybody at midnight, but the cops came at midnight. But we had an excellent system of information because all our workers had class 4 relations. So the peon was somebody's uncle, the man who took the water was somebody's father. So we kept getting information about what was going on inside, and we were told something is going to happen tonight. Watch out. So we were watching out, and they came at midnight. They came, 100 cops just descended on us. They wanted to lift us, but we were smarter than them, and we shouted on a mic like this, which we used to have. We wailed in Rajasthan when death occurs. So all the women wailed so loudly that the whole of Beam got up because it was summer. Everyone was sleeping outside. And then we had the drum, which is, there's a warrior beat and there's a beat which is for crisis. So the crisis beat on the drum, and everybody responded with their blood and they came running. And the government took all the wrong people away and left the people who were on hunger fast behind. But unlike what they expected, the hunger fast did not end. We kept on with it. 100 crores was withheld. Government of Rajasthan had to pay us the minimum wage, but it led the MKSS to understand that we can't keep going on hunger fast. So what shall we do? And the idea of a public or social audit was born. And that I'm going to expand on tomorrow. But the public audit and the social audit was the MKSS Right to Information's contribution to the systemic change and reform of governance. It's now not only in India, but abroad everywhere. It's part of MGNREGA. But I'm jumping the gun. And what happened? Because every time we had a protest, there were songs and theatre, and our dharnas were extremely lively. So I'm going to play you now the second clip. But before you play, I'll just take one. Okay, play. I'll speak afterwards. Is Mohan Ramji. We used to call him affectionately Mohanji or Mohan Ba. He's died 2 years ago. He knew 500 Kabir lyrics. He was the greatest Kabir Bhajanchi of our area. Every bhajan, Kabir, Bhajan and Mohanji was always there. He was an original lyricist. He was a great singer. And this song he sang, which, how many of you understand Hindi? Okay, I'll first say it in Hindi and then in translation. He said, पहले वाला चोर भाया बंदूक से मारता था, अब भी वाला चोर, अब का जो चोर है वो कलम से मारता है, जमाना चोरों का है. That's the song, but he sings it in Rajasthani. The first line says that the dacoits and the big scamsters of old used to kill with a gun. The dacoits and scamsters of the modern day kill you with a pen. It is the day of scams. It's the generation and the times of scams. This song went viral. It went all over Rajasthan. So the Right to Information campaign, from its abstract theory of transparency and accountability, got translated into what could be understood by the ordinary common person, that it is only a question कि कलम से मारते हैं, they kill us with a with the pen, so the records are vitally important. It's not important to find the khazana, the treasure, hidden somewhere in a jungle. It's vitally important to see what those records say. So it is that understanding of the ordinary person that was the trigger for the right to information, movement and struggle becoming a popular movement. Because none of these will succeed unless they become a popular movement. And of course, the slogans, the many slogans that came, and the songs that were made, and everything else. And if I may take just 3 minutes more, when Sushila, my friend and colleague, 4th class pass, will be disqualified now from standing for elections in Rajasthan because she hasn't passed her 8th standard, who has travelled all the way to the United Nations to release the biannual report of UN Women because she participated in the Right to Information campaign in India. She is recognized all over Rajasthan and the Hindi-speaking world for her power as an orator and a thinker. She came in 1996 to a meeting in Delhi where we were discussing the law. Mr. V.P. Singh was there, Mr. George Fernandez was there, so many other politicians, ex-prime ministers were there, judges were there, Justice Sawant was there, Justice Satchar was there, so many people, and there was Sushila. And the press said to her, "What are you doing here in Hindi? What are you doing here? This is an abstract issue, it's meant for pada likha log, literate people. What are you doing here?" And how much have you studied? She said, "I've studied up to the 4th class." So they said, "We just don't understand. You have a role to play." And then she said, first in Hindi, then in English. She said, "मैं अपने बेटे को 10 रुपया देकर बाजार भेजती हूँ और वो वापस आता है तो उससे हिसाब लेती हूँ। ये सरकार हमारे नाम पर अरबों खरबों रुपए खा जाता है। हिसाब नहीं लूंगी क्या? हमारा पैसा, हमारा हिसाब." So she said, "When I give 10 rupees to my son and send him to the marketplace to buy anything and he comes back, I ask for accounts. This government and the state spends billions of rupees in my name. Should I not ask for accounts? It's our money, therefore it's our accounts." This slogan went all over India. Number padam, number kanak, amar pesha, amar hisab, whatever. And in Hindi, and in Telugu, in Malayalam, in Punjabi. So the slogan went everywhere, and Sushila, with her extraordinary ethics and intelligence, cut through all the verbiage of me, of Nikhil. She cut through all the verbiage of justices and all the others who had joined us, even of Prabhas Joshi. She cut right through and went into the heart of the matter. And like Mohanji did, in 4 words, she defined what the right to information was. In one sense, one of the most important aspects of it. It is our money that government spends, so logically, it's our accounts. Realizing, going back to Ambedkar, how the Constitution gives us the right to realize it, and going back to Ambedkar, that we have to fight these contradictions by exposing them and confronting, making the government and the state confront its own contradictions. So I don't know if you're allowed to shout slogans in this room, are you? You can. May I, with your permission, just this very important, it's not a political slogan, it's a democratic slogan. Will you? Yes. All right. English? Yes. Or Hindi? Okay, both languages. Hamara paisa. You say hamara hisab. Hamara paisa. Hamara paisa. Our money. Accounts. Our money. Our money. Zindabad.